Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio. Here we are in 2025, and I have a special guest with me today, a very, very special guest. The reason why I even exist, and that is my mother, Amy O'Rourke. And I am so blessed that she lives near me in South Florida. And we have this opportunity today for me to interview her, have an open, free-flowing conversations. I told her there are no questions that I will give her in advance to ponder and think about. We will just free flow in natural conversation and see where it goes, because she has been an incredible inspiration to me in a lot of the lessons that she has passed down from so much wisdom and experience. We will get into all of that. And as the South African proverb that I read once, it said, "I am because you are. I am because you are." I feel that I am because she is. And if anything were different in the journey along the way, I would not be the woman I am today. So again, without further ado, I want to get started in a conversation with Mom. Welcome to the podcast studio.
Oh, thank you so much. This is exciting. I've never done anything remotely like this.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
You have
it
been in
is.
front of the room, and you do lead many
Yes, I do
women,
that.
and we'll get into that. So you do know what it looks like to
Yeah,
lead.
I do know what it is to stand in front of an audience.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So this is actually Amy O'Rourke, born Emilienne, which is a French derivative of Emily. So she's Emilienne Marie O'Rourke, and known as Amy. And I am my mom is a firstborn, a child. She has two younger brothers, and I am also the eldest of her three daughters. And so we want to start. I don't even know where to begin, because it's, so incredible. Mom, why don't we start with, what are your earliest memories? Just kind of start with, was your childhood like, and growing up, and before we get into how and when I was conceived.
Okay. Um, my earliest memory was when I was about 3 years old. And I know that because my parents told me that's how old I was. But it was in Germany. My dad was in the army, and we were stationed in Frankfurt, Germany. And their best friends who lived there when we were there had a German Shepherd. And I clearly remember that dog and playing with that dog. I'm being in the living room of the apartment we were in with that dog. So that's my earliest memory. We bounced all over the place when Daddy was in the military. So for the first 8 years of my life, he was in the military. And we were in Germany, in France, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And then he left the military when I was 8. And then we moved around even more while he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life, since he was no longer career Army.
Like we're all continually attempting
Bouncing
to do.
around. I know. A lot of geographicals in our life.
Right. And we learn along the way. So, and you have two younger brothers.
I do.
Mick and Dave.
Right.
My
Mick
uncles.
is 2 years younger. Dave is 4 years younger. And they were my best company growing up, because we moved so much that I figured out by about mid-elementary school that it was safer not to try to make friends, because we were going to end up moving, and it was too painful to leave my friends that I'd met. But I knew my brothers had to go. They had to be with me because they were part of the family.
Right, exactly.
So, and as it turned out, my brother Mick was my very best friend until he left home to go to West Point.
And he went off to college.
Yeah, he went off to do his own adulting.
Right. So you are bouncing all over the place, however many schools before
A lot of
you
schools, a lot of states.
finished high school, and you're beginning your senior year of high school.
Yeah, it was actually, I just thought I was the smartest girl my age. I was 17 and thought I knew everything, like most teenagers do.
Right.
And I was a chronic malcontent even as a teenager, and I didn't like my circumstances, and I wanted to get away from home. I was too impatient, and I wanted to do life my way and do adulting my way. And so I decided the best thing to do would be to get married, and leave home. So I purposely got pregnant, had to get married. We got married, and that's how my life started. Now, you were right 3 months after I turned 18.
Right.
Yeah. And then your sister followed less than a year and a half later, Laura. And then Lisa, surprise, 3.5 years after that.
Right. And weren't you on like birth control or something
Oh, yeah.
even?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
on the heavy duty kind back
Right.
then.
She was meant to be born.
She was.
So these 3
God
girls.
wanted that child on this planet.
Right.
And as it turns out, she is definitely, well, all 3 of you are God's angels. These are my Charlie's angels here. They're my Jimmy's angels.
Right. Right.
Her father's name is Jimmy.
Exactly. And so this really changed the trajectory of your life, choosing. Like I said, I wasn't an accident. I may have been unplanned or not, actually.
Oh, no, you were
We
planned.
conceived on my dad's birthday or something.
Yep, definitely. And we were both so happy about that.
Right.
Even
Even though
though
you were 17 and 19.
17 and 19. But he literally, when I told him that the doctor confirmed that I was pregnant, he picked me up and spun me around. We were so thrilled because my parents didn't want me even dating him. And we knew now that they couldn't separate us,
Right.
at that point. So we were both tickled, but we were kids.
Well, I know you're humble about this, but you were, top of the class. You were in the top of the class, and you, like your younger brothers, could have gone anywhere that you wanted, to college, to university. And so by choosing to have a child and get married, and here I am, I wouldn't be here. That changed, again, the trajectory of your life. And so you became you had 3 girls before you were 23 years old.
Yep. Well, I was just turned 23 when I had Lisa. So I had 3 kids when I was 23.
Yeah. And so how is that? I can't even imagine, because now I have children, your grandchildren are that age. And imagine that, them right now having a couple of kids.
Well, Lisa, her birth was really, really difficult. And they told me that I should not have any more kids because either I would die or the baby would die. And it was a very difficult birth. So they said, you can't have any more babies. But obviously I couldn't go on the pill. So I was sterilized.
Right.
So I wouldn't have any more kids.
Right.
That was okay with me. I was okay with that.
You had 3.
I had 3. I wanted 6.
Really?
Yeah. And I wanted them to be all girls. Well, I always wanted girls.
6 girls.
Well, I had 2 brothers. I grew up with 2 brothers, okay? And brothers are annoying.
Right.
It was my way of getting my comeuppance in life, that I get to, I didn't get to pick, but I did ask God when I was 11 years old. I wasn't even sure if he knew I existed. But I asked him, I said, my very first prayer of my life when I was 11, and I said, please make me a mommy when I'm big and give me only girls.
Right.
And he heard me. I don't think God has ever said no to a prayer of mine, though.
Yeah, he has watched over all of us, our whole family, many times.
My life is one big, long, divine intervention. If it hadn't been for God,
right,
there's many times I wouldn't have gotten this far.
Amen.
Yeah.
So getting married young and having 3 children, and then you reach a point, you're in your mid 20s, and say, is this it? You missed out on going to college, and I'm just home and making dinner and being a housewife. And
well, I worked hard at home. I sewed clothes for some of the families in the neighborhood to make money. I reupholstered furniture to make money.
I remember that. An amazing yellow velvet sofa.
Your dad didn't want me working out of the house. So the problem is it was a little bit confining for me at that age. And we were kids when we got married. We were kids having kids.
Absolutely.
And we discovered as we were growing that we wanted different things than we did when we first got married. We didn't want the same things for our lives together that we had or in the direction we were going. And it was not a good relationship by that point.
Right.
It was not good at 7 years. And we tried. We tried from the time we were married before Lisa
That
was born.
7-year number.
Well, we tried from, we actually split up for a very short time before Lisa was born and got back together. And that's when I got pregnant with her immediately.
Right.
And it was one of those, okay, well, got to have two parents. So we stayed together. But by the time she was 15 months old, I knew I had to leave.
Yeah.
I had to leave. I had to become the adult I wanted to be. And just being a mommy wasn't challenging enough for me. I needed adults to talk to. And your dad worked 16, 18-hour days. He was gone. So I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Right. Busy with young kids.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I have those memories. I was 6, had just finished kindergarten at the time when you divorced, and we headed to the West Coast from the DC area and
Actually, we
to
went
Denver,
to
right?
Denver,
to
yeah.
Denver, right, to live initially with your parents,
Right.
with my grandparents, who were a great support initially.
Well, I didn't have any marketable skills.
Right. So you went back to school. You went to school.
So I went to school and I got a job. And my parents watched you guys. Meme watched you guys during the day. Dad was at work. Mom watched you guys. And I paid her.
I mean, well, they're like in their 40s. I mean, just like they're young grandparents with these, supporting their daughter and 3 grandchildren.
Right, right. And I was working very hard. I was a production manager for a printing company. I don't know how I got a
Got your
manager
paralegal?
position. Not yet. I went to secretarial school and learned to become a secretary. And I taught myself typing at home at your grandparents' house.
Yeah.
And I had enough money saved up so that when we'd been there exactly 1 year, we moved to California. And the divorce got finalized, and I rented us a little house in Mountain View, California.
I remember.
And we moved there. You guys got into school.
And now you're a single working mom.
Right. And then I went to Kenyatta College to get, to expand my education and become a paralegal. So I could get a paralegal certification. And at the same time, I got a job working for an attorney who was a probate attorney. So I could learn probate law at the same time I was learning to become a paralegal. And it turned out wonderfully. I was a legal secretary for him, even though I wasn't officially a legal secretary yet. And I wore 3 hats working for him.
And they hit the jackpot with you, Miss High IQ, and probably greater than the attorneys that you worked for. My mother is an avid reader, incredible, and so one of the many things that she passed down to us was grammar queen. So I tend to follow that as I stutter. But correcting us, such a little things, always correcting us with our grammar growing up. And I so appreciate that, later in life, both, written and spoken articulation. So thank you for that along the way. When you moved to California and you start working, and so now my elementary years are the oldest of 3 girls. There's a working mom. So at a young age, when I think about how things are so different, the way my kids were raised, and actually my children were 8, 6, and 4 when I divorced. And so they were young as well, but I had a 50-50 conscious co-parenting with their father. And so the upbringing was, and we moved around a bit during those years as well, for
Right.
different work opportunities or some
No, I kept the
relationship
same
changes?
work. I just changed where we lived.
Changed where, right.
We went from Mountain View to Foster City,
Yeah.
and it was closer to my parents there while I was expanding my education with the paralegal. And my parents had, in the intervening time, moved from Colorado, from Denver, to Redwood City, which was right next to Foster City. So we all got closer, and I was continuing my education. Um,
So that time, so let's call it 75 to 1980, those years. You've got three young girls. You've gone out on your own. And so how are you managing that? I can't even imagine. And
I,
you don't realize, parenting doesn't come with a manual. All of you parents out there know that. And it's not often until we become parents ourselves that we realize that our parents did the best that they could from the level of consciousness and awareness that they were at the time with the resources that they had. It was a different time. And so just have an appreciation for being mid to late 20s with three girls and working and trying to manage life and relationships. And it's just a lot. It's just, from my perspective, it had to have been a lot. So what kind of
well,
started for you?
my life started taking a change, a big turn, um, for the good and the bad. Okay, the good was I was making inroads with my education and with accumulating skills in the workforce, being able to start a resume. That was nice. And I love learning, so I loved going to school. I was always going to taking classes somewhere to expand my education. And but at the same time, because I'd gotten married so young, I got a little cocky and the life owes me a living. I didn't get to go to senior prom. I didn't get to go to the formal graduation. I got my diploma in December of 68. I did not graduate with my class in June of 69 because I was able to test out of all of my senior classes early.
You were
Um,
also pregnant with a growing belly.
oh, that's
Yeah,
true. That's true. But they let me test out
yeah,
because I already had all my high school credits. I never took it,
yeah.
little electives and things like that, but I had all my high school credits, so they let me graduate early. There just was no ceremony about it. But I didn't get to do that. I didn't get to do proms and things like that.
You missed out on.
And I thought I wanted to do life what I thought was adulting, okay? For what
You
the way
wanted to have some fun.
I wanted to have some fun, but I went about it the wrong way. And um, I started drinking, going out to bars. And unfortunately, um, I've always had this philosophy that if a little is good, a lot must be
Must
terrific.
be better.
And I regularly drank too much. I was just going out at night. You guys were asleep. You were in bed. You had a babysitter.
Right.
And I met a really nice man who was a great dancer, and I thought he was terrific. Okay, and I thought it would be nice to have somebody help me share the load. And he really liked you guys. Um, I don't know that you agree with that, but he really liked you guys. This was Bernie. This was husband number two, as it turns out. And yeah, we
He
decided
looked like the Marlboro man.
he did.
Yeah.
He did. And we moved to Citrus Heights, which was just one of the suburbs of Sacramento.
Right.
And again, my life took another turn. I went to work for a law firm in Sacramento,
Yeah.
and he had different interests. And I thought, well, it hadn't worked the first time, so let's try it his way and see what he wants to do. And he was an outdoorsman, and he wanted to try self-sufficiency. We're going to grow our own fruits and vegetables, and we're going to raise animals, and we will live
The
off
deer hunter.
live off the land. And
Two Irish setter dogs named Brandy and Heineken.
Well, between the rabbits, the chickens, the dogs, I mean,
I was in the 4-H club.
you were, and, but we didn't.
Oh boy,
We didn't do.
we had moved to the foothills to Auburn
We were in
outside.
Citrus Heights in an apartment. Then we moved to a little house. Loved that house, but he wanted us to own our own house with some land, and he was a sweet man. He really was. He meant well. We just had nothing in common.
Right.
And I mean, even though I did learn how to go camping, which cured me of ever going to camping again.
I remember
And
having to go to the bathroom in the ground, dig a hole, and that was a joy.
right, there was no such thing as air mattresses for our sleeping bags. You get to
Right.
wake up right next to those cow pies, you know?
Right.
And tremendous headaches from trying to wash pots and pans in mountain streams that, the water's from melted snow.
Right.
So when you go to wash your face in those streams,
Right.
it feels like it's falling
I
off.
remember the camping. I think I got cured from wanting to. No, it's in my world, it's glamping or nothing.
I learned archery. I was a really good shot, too. We even tried bow hunting together. That was another experience. I was a really great wife. I would try anything.
You out with all the
But-
guys in your camo.
But more than anything, he was a drinking buddy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was
They say birds
our
of a feather
relationship.
flock together.
Yeah, our relationship was not written in the stars. Okay, it was not destined to be long term.
Yeah.
It was only 2 years.
Yeah.
And I had, in the meantime, switched jobs in Sacramento from a law firm to working for an inheritance tax referee, which was a taxing system that the state of California had then. And in prior to 1985, they had it. And this is 1978. And I went to work for actually two of the inheritance tax referees. And I basically prepared all the paperwork that was supposed to be done for the state controller's office and for the courts, because I was a paralegal now and I could do the tax work. And I became a bit of a tax expert in probate administration and taxes, and a probate administration expert.
And you're a single working mom again.
Yes. Well, yes. I met somebody while I was still married.
Right.
And he turned out to be husband number 3. And he was really a drinking buddy. My brother Mick, my best friend, met somebody that he wanted to marry. She's a lovely lady. He had gone to Stanford, and that's where they met. And he wanted to get married in Stanford Chapel. At Stanford Chapel. And we were commuting from Sacramento down to the peninsula where all my parents were, my aunts, uncles, a million cousins, and where Mick and George were living. Georgine was my sister-in-law. And she asked me to make the flower girl dresses for you and your sisters for the wedding. And we had gone down to the peninsula to buy the fabric, and then I was taking it home. And I had been drinking that weekend that we were with the family, and that Bill and I were out together. We liked to race on the sailboat, so we were crew members on a racing yacht on weekends, and that was part of our hobbies. We did a lot of fun things together.
Sailboat?
Yeah, in the San Francisco Bay.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, and I learned so much. But mainly what we did together was drink. Everybody on the boat drank.
Yep.
And picked you guys up from your grandfather's house at the end of that weekend, and we were headed back up into the mountains where my house was with husband number 2.
Yep.
We were living in the house together because we were trying to sell it, and neither of us could afford to move out and live in separate houses.
Right.
So he was living in one end of the house, and I was living in the other until we could sell it. And I started to doze off at the wheel.
Yeah.
And I do remember looking up at the rearview mirror and saying, God, here we go, as the car started to tip over.
Yeah.
And that car rolled over 4 times with the 3 of you asleep in it.
Yeah.
And it was the absolute scariest night of my life, and I know yours too,
Yeah.
as well as your sisters, though they were really sound asleep. They didn't know what had happened. Um, and it became, for decades, the accident in all capital letters.
Right.
Um, the real tragedy, you were the one that got hurt. You were thrown from the car, and we never figured
Never
out if
figured
it
out
was
what
glass or
happened. Yeah.
metal that cut your foot.
Yeah.
But you sustained a horrible cut that required 50 stitches on the top of your foot.
Yeah.
And fortunately for us, we were right by UC Davis Medical Center that had a trauma center there.
Yeah.
And the first to arrive on the scene of the accident were 2 doctors that had just gotten off duty. So the ambulances were immediately there. And I remember, did I say that I told God, okay, here we go? Yeah, well, he heard. He saved our lives.
It's, I
It
remember
was just miraculous that
the
the
paramedics and everybody saying, "Oh, it's a miracle. This mother and her 3 daughters are alive." And
the Honda Civic was a skateboard. I mean,
yeah,
it was so flattened. It was
yeah. And so what's really wild is that had I not been reclined in the seat with the seatbelt, wearing a seatbelt but reclined, so it had me. I slipped out somehow because of it wasn't taught.
well, the window broke with the first roll.
Right. So
And I think you
somehow
went
I
right
was
out the window.
tossed. Had I been trapped in there the way the car landed, very possibly I would have been, crushed inside the vehicle. So I was meant to be tossed, maybe because I was young, my body was limp and flexible. But yeah, I remember being on the side of the road and seemed like the car was pretty far away, upside down, with, the doctors gone, we're doctors and don't touch her, and
Right. There was no police.
Yeah.
They never showed up. I never did. That was God again.
Right.
Because I never figured out how the insurance adjuster did what he had to do without a police report. But anyway, I wasn't going to complain.
Right.
Because my blood alcohol level was probably pretty high. But the accident sobered me up for sure. And so did, 3 hours of driving. But
what was the impact?
what started in my head was, you could have killed your kids. You could have killed your kids.
Yeah.
Because of the lifestyle you've chosen. Because of the alcohol you were drinking. And, I didn't know we were going to get into all this, but okay. Make a long story short, time passed, you got better, and the guilt started. I had a ball of guilt about that big that lived right here.
On your chest.
And yeah, it made me short of breath a lot. I made the decision, because I knew I wasn't ready to stop drinking, that when you went to your father's for the summer, because he got you every summer and holidays, he was on the other side of the country. He was in the state of Maryland. We were in California. That you ought to live with him, because you weren't safe with me. Every time I drank, I got behind the wheel of a car, and you guys followed me. I mean,
Right.
you got right in the car with me because you were living with me.
That was one of the best decisions that you ever made, though. That
Probably,
awareness.
that was
and
the
one
best.
is the best decision you ever made
Um,
for your kids, for us.
Yeah, I knew you weren't safe.
Yeah.
But I knew instinctively. I mean, I wanted to stop drinking, but I knew I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't ready. And you went to live with him. And I drank behind that, drank even more.
Yeah, because
But
now you've.
I'm still holding down a job.
Yeah.
And Bill and I ended up getting married. And we're drinking more, but I want to stop drinking. And it's chasing me. I need to stop drinking. I need to stop drinking. And we talked about it. And we actually went into, it was a big thing then. They were just starting with the rehab centers and the detox facilities and stuff. the standalone
The Betty
buildings.
Ford Clinic and
Yeah, that had, in fact, that hit a little bit after us, I think. They were just starting with the commercials. I remember they had one. It was an elephant, and they said it's time to address the elephant in the room on this commercial. And it was people who needed to quit drinking, and they were advertising for a brand new detox and rehabilitation facility at the local hospital. They had a new wing put on, and that's what it was for. And I told him that, we really need to go to that because he wasn't going to go by himself. And I mean, I drank like a fish, but he outdrank me every time. He was a lot bigger too.
yeah.
But we went for the 3-day detox, but he immediately that first night started in having seizures.
Which is very common, right?
When
The
you drink the
risk.
way he did,
Hmm.
and because it was the first time he'd gone 6 hours without a drink. He never slept through the night. He would get up in the middle of the night and drink. We drank a lot,
Yeah.
a lot. And the business was doing really well. It wasn't like we had to show up at a specific hour as long as we got the work done, which we did.
So
But
functioning alcoholism.
totally
Yeah.
functioning. And eventually, what happened? Oh, and in this time, I got alcoholic hepatitis.
Yeah.
Took medication for that, and they kept telling me, well, you need to stop drinking. Well, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? And I didn't know before I went to that rehab facility, I'd never heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. But in there, they give you an education about it and tell you, you really ought to try this. Well, Bill wasn't going to have any of it. He wasn't going to have any of it. So I went to the meetings. They let me go after my 30 days. I did the 3-day detox and the 30 days in there. And that's all the insurance would pay for. And then I went home, and I probably went to, I don't know, half a dozen meetings, maybe 10.
Locally. Yeah.
Um, but I went by myself, and that wasn't what I'd planned. And I found that I was not drinking going to those meetings, but I figured I could do it on my own. I didn't need to be there. And finally, after he'd been in the hospital for 40 days and they decided he wasn't going to die, he got so sick, they were afraid he was going to die at one point from withdrawal from the alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Finally, they let him come home, but he wouldn't go to AA with me. And I figured, well, what the heck? So I started joining him, drinking.
Again.
But I was no, but I wasn't drinking to get drunk like I used to.
Right.
I always drank to get drunk because I didn't want all the guilt, the tapes, the voices, any of that. In fact, I had become, while I was married to him, I had become what they call a blackout drinker. You drink until you have no memory of what you were doing while you were under the influence of alcohol. I'd had a couple of spates of that, and
The Pink Floyd song comes to mind. I have become comfortably numb.
yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted. That's funny you should say that. I used to always say that. I want to drink till my face is
Yeah.
numb.
Yeah.
Um, and alcohol did plenty for me. I didn't need anything else. I mean, it did enough. But anyhow, we made a decision to get a divorce because I had to get sober. I missed you guys so much. And I wasn't drinking any less,
And this is
missing
about a
you.
4-year period of time.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We were married 2 years. We got married in 82. We lived together from 80 to 82. We got married in 82. And by 1984, I'd had enough. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. I was convinced I was going to die before I was 35, the way I was drinking, and the fact that I blacked out. So I thought if I was around you guys, maybe I'd have to be better. I'd have to get better. I'd have to quit. It'd give me incentive. So we got a divorce real quick. I was a paralegal, so I could do all the paperwork. And
Get a job at a firm in Maryland and then be living near us.
yep,
So you moved from California to Maryland. You
to
were living
Maryland.
near us.
And it took a couple years. But of stopping drinking. I almost died drinking so much right after I got there. I ended up in the hospital with kidney failure.
I remember.
One of my
Yeah.
favorite memories is you coming to take care of me in the hospital. I'll never, ever forget that. Anyway, uh, I got back to Alcoholics Anonymous. An angel walked up to my desk one day at work, and I knew he went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I told him I needed to go to a meeting. And he stopped everything. He called his friends in AA, and he says, I'm bringing somebody to a meeting tonight, be there. She's going to need a sponsor, and she's going to need, to really get into the program. And I went to the meeting, and this delightful woman, another angel in my life, said she'd be my sponsor. And that started a journey from that day to this, more than 38 years later.
Yes, God bless.
I've never found it
God bless.
necessary to pick up another drink.
And the line is,
it's been a journey.
5 is not enough and 1 is too many.
No, 1 is not enough. I mean, yeah. 1 is not enough, but and
1 is too much.
Right.
And 5 is not enough.
Oh, we always say 1,000's not enough, and 1 is too many, because you never, we always say it's the first drink that kills you. Because the thing with alcoholism is you can't stop. Once you start, you can't stop.
How do you distinguish? How could you express to others out there? Many people. We've come out of a pandemic. It's been almost 5 years. We have, with technology, people are working remotely now and more isolated. And for the benefits of technology, we also have like a mental health crisis and a loneliness epidemic in the country, which has lent itself to people, seeking out medication and, taking substances to escape, to numb, drinking more. What constitutes too much, or how would you say, what distinguishes someone from being an alcoholic versus not?
Oh, that's so personal to the individual. One of the things we used to say is, does alcohol cause problems in your life? If the answer is no, you're not a problem drinker.
Right.
If it causes problems, you got to take a look at your drinking. We're not qualified to diagnose each other. It's a conclusion that the individual has to come to on their own. Like I said, I knew I was an alcoholic long before I got serious about AA, because I couldn't stop drinking.
Yeah.
Just couldn't stop. And the things I did, they were so self-destructive. Yet, they define insanity as repeating the same behavior, expecting different results.
Do you believe the tendency was there for you from the whole biology, your father being a drinker?
Let's see. With being college bound at 17, I planned getting pregnant, getting married to get out of the house, almost as a revenge move. It's like, okay, I'm going to be in charge now. I don't like the way you're running my life. I'm going to run it. It's known as self-will run riot.
Right.
Which is how I ran my life. Yeah, I had alcoholic behavior way before I drank. Way before I drank.
And again, do you believe that there's a greater predisposition given your father having been a drinker?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So within
it
families,
runs in families.
it runs in families.
And sometimes it skips generations. Like, we're all lucky. You guys haven't exhibited any signs. None of my grandchildren so far.
Yeah.
It's just me, which is okay. But I was an escape artist from when I was little.
Well, I think it's really very interesting in the witnessing, having a parent. I think people either they'll follow the path of the parent, that learned behavior, or go the other way. So for me, witnessing what was painful had me be very conscious of my lifestyle habits, and drinking.
Right.
So I am because you are. So my sense of, moderation and love of consciousness, and I am my consciousness in the present moment, and I am here to practice love. And that is my purpose, and to elevate consciousness. And so, while I see that things were, all of who I am is absolutely a function. You use the word bad. I'm not sure there's good and bad or right or wrong in the scheme of things. Good things that happened or that you did, and or there were bad things. There were things that seemed to have some negative, or adverse outcomes, right? It's
Well, because you can say negative because it's politically correct now to
right.
say negative. Okay,
Right.
it was
You're
just
like, it's bad. That was a bad choice. Let's be
Lots
real.
of bad
Those are
choices.
some bad
Okay,
choices.
yeah.
But one of the greatest things for us is to be, while it was challenging, because a lot of responsibility was placed on me, having two younger sisters, you being a working mom, having that, responsibility and independence. But again, I see the good that came out of that. I am the firstborn child and grandchild in the family, and sort of the leadership role that I took on. And so, and in the awareness, I was an age to be I became hyper
You
aware,
were a
probably.
classic firstborn. You were an overachiever, just like me
Yeah.
growing up. But one of the things I did was make a commitment that, I mean, I swore a solemn oath. It meant something to me too to call it a solemn oath, that I would never pick up a drink again and endanger your lives. I didn't care how old you got. Never. You know, I ask God for help every day so I don't, you know, get a crazy notion. I see all the time people with lots and lots of years, with decades, who decide to pick up a drink. They decide they can, and they can't. Some of them get lucky and they come back in and they get sober again. A lot of them don't. A lot of them die drinking.
5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and then go back right to where they left off.
No, worse, because
Right.
it's a progressive disease. They pick up drinking after 20 years not drinking as though they never stopped. So, however much you would have been drinking had you never stopped, that's where they start drinking again. That's why it's a very short trip usually for a lot of those people who go back out. Nowadays, with the epidemic with the drugs, it's a lot faster trip too because,
People are combining things. It's
like you
like not
said,
just alcohol. I say, I mean, marijuana didn't pass here in Florida yet, but
well, and
it's
there's a fentanyl epidemic and they're putting it in everything.
yeah, scary.
So we're watching young people die left and right.
Yeah. And this cocktail of opioids and benzodiazepines and mixing that and the Adderalls, and people are just combining alcohol with all
Yeah.
kinds of things. It's really sad and unfortunate. So you
Anyhow, one of the things I did as part of my own voyage of self-discovery while I was starting AA and improving my life was starting to explore my own creativity. And I decided I was going to start creating things, making things, doing sculpture, and then sculpting with other materials. And it was very rewarding and very satisfying, and it was a nice outlet for me.
you are quite the artiste. You are quite the artiste. Your mother as well.
Yes,
My
my mother's an
grandmother's and
extraordinary painter.
she's an extraordinary painter, and all of your sculpting. And as a result of all the creations, you'll see here on the camera, for those of you who may be catching this
Those are
on Spotify or YouTube, it's
a few
so this
examples.
is an example of a goddess bust that she created, and you'll see all of the shells that are part of the goddess creation. You have a mirror over here on the other side. um, you have made so many amazing creations out of
Lots and
all
lots of
different
them.
materials. I mean, my junior and senior prom dresses. This is at the time of, like, I'm aging myself. Dynasty and Dallas were on TV, and you custom made our prom dresses for us. It was like one of a kind. No one else was going to have this dress,
I
and
designed
I
them.
had an emerald green one and an amethyst purple, and they were spectacular. And I still I still am holding them in my closet like 35, 40 years later. So yeah, I mean, cooking, cooking, sewing, sculpting, painting, drawing, collaging, you name it. Mom, can you fix this? Mom, can you do this? Mom, can you make me one of these? So incredible talent. I am a stick figure drawer. I mean, it's just, I'm more of that right brain dominant. And so in the background, also, you see here, this is because I want to talk for a few minutes for sure. We don't wrap up without talking about spirituality and faith and how that has been a big
My
part of the
favorite
journey.
topic.
And, 38 years to stay the course, and how you are leading other women and men, sponsoring many women over the years in their sobriety and as the example. But you have the Messiah in the background that I remember it's very special that you did many years ago. If you can pan to the Messiah, um, and you'll see that
He's
in
one
the
of the pieces.
background. Yeah,
I did him
it's
early
really,
on.
it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, you've done drawings and
Oh,
paintings
yeah, I have.
as well. And so a box, even special boxes. I mean, this box behind me, it's one of many, many different types of creative boxes made of shells and other materials, that you've created. You've done a lot with shells for fun, but even beyond that, I have, when I got married, you created, what were they, 12 and 18 inches high, actual
Oh,
sculpted
they were
dolls
about 18 and 20.
of
Yeah.
us, and copied my wedding dress and my hairstyle with the tiara and the eye, everything. It's
Nick's
me. It's like
tuxedo.
yeah,
Your
it's it.
husband's tuxedo. I did it in miniature.
So at the wedding, here's this sculpted, doll of the two dolls of
They
the
were
two of us
portrait dolls.
dancing.
They look
Portrait dolls were just unbelievable. So you do a lot of custom work, and so um, I just love the idea that instead of doing all of these wonderful creations and giving them the way to people, you did have a gallery many years ago in California, but now after retirement, getting more creative again, and doing custom pieces and other things that inspire you for others to see. Creations by Emily N. So yeah, there's a lot there for you to focus on. You have a big birthday this month, and a Pisces late February coming up, and it's so incredible. So 38 years, more than half your life,
Yep.
and been sober, and the spirituality. I just want to touch on that because it's super important. What has been? How has your faith been? What's really supported you on the journey and in your leadership?
Well, the total evolution in my life is that um, you guys were the first in my life for a long time. And then during sobriety, but particularly more recently, I put God in my life first. And thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was introduced to God because they want you to have a higher power. The whole program is based on finding and getting close to a higher power in your life. That's not a human being. It's well, I'll use the word supernatural. They don't use it, but I'll use the word supernatural. A being greater than you. You have to believe in somebody that's bigger than your
A
ego,
power, a
a
force.
power, yes, whatever it might be. And I chose God, and more recently, Jesus Christ. I'm actually now at this point in my life. I was raised without any religion or spirituality in my life, none. And I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found out it was absolutely essential that I have a higher power. And I thought, well, I've always known there was a God. I mean, he saved my life a couple of times, and I know it was because of God. It was not because of any other reason. It wasn't supposed to happen. People called it miraculous that we survived that accident. I don't know how anybody could have walked away from that, but we all did.
Yes. I remember being in the hospital, Mom, and saying, and that was the first time I had a sense at 10, not quite 11 years old, that there is a God. so there must be this God because I am alive and I shouldn't be here.
Right.
And the fact that I am alive means that I have things to do. I have things to do on this planet and create and make an impact and to make a difference, to make a positive difference. And I sort of got that young, when I was 10, that there is a higher power. There's something out there.
Well, I knew there was a God the moment they placed you in my arms when you were born, because that's when I knew there were really such a thing as miracles. I knew God had worked a miracle because I'd never seen anything so perfect in my life. I mean, I was a kid
Having a kid.
and immature about the decisions and choices I'd made, but I took one look at you and fell in love with you and thought that this is it. This is what life is supposed to be about. And you were so perfect. You're so perfect. And I thought, well, you could only come from God.
Through you.
Yeah. So this journey's been wonderful, and I'm pursuing a religion now for the first, something I said I would never do, but I'm pursuing it religiously. Yeah, I'm Bible studying, the Bible in a year, and separate Bible study. I'm listening to another podcast, the Catechism in a year, the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Because I also said I'd never become a Catholic, and here I am. Remember when I would drive you kids to church on Sundays, and I'd say hi to God for me?
Right.
When I let
You're
you out
not
of the car?
interested. Exactly.
I'd say hi to God for me.
And so when you look back on your life and you see what led to you beginning to drink and continue, and the struggle even after, an accident, a tragedy, but still not ready to stop drinking. What would you advise? How are you advising women in general out there? I mean, everyone's journey is unique, I understand, but
It's not about that. It's a program of attraction. I tell them what I did, what happened in my life. What it was like when I was drinking alcoholically. Then what happened to get me to go into Alcoholics Anonymous and try to stop drinking. And then how I've stayed sober. And, basically it's if you want what I have, do what I did. Do what I do. And then that's what we do. We're supposed to
lead by example.
Don't drink, love God, and help others. That's it.
There was a period of time where you had sort of gotten away from the community, for maybe a decade or so, and then you've had that awareness, even in the past year, the power of community.
You mentioned the epidemic of loneliness, and you mentioned the word isolating or isolationism. Alcoholics are notorious isolators. It's part of the personality type, okay, of being an alcoholic. I said that I was an escape artist. My parents fought all the time during their marriage. They finally got divorced after 28 years of marriage, but when we were kids, they fought constantly. Constantly, and it's troublesome for a little kid.
Of course.
And it's scary. And the problem with that, one of the byproducts of that is you never feel safe. You never feel secure. You only feel as secure as your parents' marriage is.
Yeah.
And when it's no good, you don't feel secure at all, and you don't feel safe.
Yes.
And sorry, Mom, when you see this. Isolation, insecurity. I know I had a point. I'm having a senior moment. I lost it.
I was just saying, you said, don't drink, love God.
Help others.
And help others. And I was saying you had gotten away from community.
Oh,
you
right.
were
Okay.
isolating, like
Okay.
you would say yourself, you had become sort of a recluse.
So when I was 8, I started reading. And I always loved reading books. I read all the Nancy Drews. I read the Hardy Boys.
And you've continued that
I read
throughout
all
your
the
whole
Agatha
life.
Christie's. I read
Yes.
I've always loved, one of the things our parents did was instill a love of learning and especially a love of reading. But I found when I picked up, I didn't want to learn stuff. I wanted to read stories. I wanted to become a part of it. That's also part of the drinking. Changed the way I feel. I felt lousy. I felt unhappy. I felt afraid. I felt insecure constantly in my life. But funny, when I drank, I didn't feel that anymore. I got brave. I got assertive. I got courageous. Okay? I changed the way I felt. And until it didn't work anymore. And then I couldn't stop drinking.
And so how do you access that, the courage and the confidence to now lead others and not drink and,
I don't.
and not be afraid anymore?
These are all gifts from God.
Yeah.
They're all gifts from God. The glorious gifts every day. Every day.
Gratitude.
I wake up
An
and
attitude of gratitude.
I thank him for my breath, for my life, for my sobriety, for the love of my family and my friends, for the love of AA. I wouldn't be here without it.
So for people and women, but people out there struggling, because there are many with alcohol addiction, it seems that to be a good community to join, get support from a community.
Absolutely.
Because you're not going to do it alone without, and most are not, that I've met, I think they don't have a spiritual practice.
No,
They don't
you
have
get
a
it.
faith practice that those that are addicts.
Right. We say when you let the ego be in charge. EGO stands for easing God out.
Yes.
And the spiritual program is what makes it click, what makes it work for me. I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak for me. Like I said, I can't dictate anything. I can't teach anything. I can't advise anything. All I can do is say, here's what happened to me. Here's what my life is like today. Here's what I do to maintain my life today. These are the prayers I say. This is what I read. I have a daily devotional called Jesus Calling. I have about 4 devotionals. That's just one of them. Like I said, I'm in a Bible study. That works for me. Other people have other programs.
But get with a program.
But they're spiritually based.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you've got a higher power that's working for you, keep doing what you're doing. And that's another saying. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting.
I keep, yes, and even in all ways, So I have that sign, different quotes and canvases, in my space. She believed she could, and so she did.
Right.
And here I am, and wake each day with a grateful heart.
And no matter where you go.
No matter where you go, there you are. So you can run, but you can't hide.
And I've always had on my refrigerator, be still.
And know.
Yeah, be still and know that I am God.
Know that I am God. And that proverb is so powerful. And so the biggest thing I want you all to know that I took away is from my mother growing up is she said to me and my sisters, I've got 2 words for you for your success in life. I got 2 words. No matter what you choose, what path you choose, 2 words. Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention to what you're saying, how you're being, what you're doing. Your choices. Pay attention to others, how they're being, your surroundings, what you're reading, what you're signing, and it goes on. And just paying attention. We're so distracted. We're in a world with so much coming at us that it's more important now than ever to pay attention and notice what we're paying attention to.
Right. You have to actively listen. Active listening is critical to all of that process too.
Yeah.
one of the first things they did when I started in Alcoholics Anonymous is the women, because the women got me sober. But these are women that had been in a long time, a lot of years of sobriety. They suggested right away that I go see a particular therapist. They said, we don't poo-poo outside help at all. If you want to see a therapist for any reason, go ahead. But we happen to know a particularly good one who teaches classes in active listening. Take that class. They told me, you need to learn how to actively listen. So many people interrupt other people when they're talking to them. They don't let them finish their sentences. So they never really hear what the message is that the other person's giving them. And that's a critical part of paying attention.
It's a tendency to listen from, do I like or not like what I'm hearing? Is it good or bad, or right or wrong, or should I be offended, or
Is it necessary?
How does it relate to me?
Well, what happens, I used to tell you, I joke at work all the time with the guys in the construction department, paint the house red. Sure, what color?
Hello.
Not listening,
Yeah,
not
just
paying attention.
not listening. And so that's the trifecta of health, wealth, and relationships. We're playing this game of life. Having a strategy helps. And so I focus on life strategy. I'm a professional coach with the ICF. Many of you know that. And so I'm big on life strategy. And around those domains, I feel like everything sort of collapses into looking at areas of our health and wellness, our wealth creation, and our relationships, because we don't do this life alone. And so relationships and finding your people and community and getting support is so important. But in all of that, effective communication, how we're doing it, verbal and nonverbal communication, everything in our way of being, it all starts with, how we're being, how we're, is it active listening? How are we listening? And how are we communicating our wants and our needs? And the one thing God gave us all is the ability to choose our wants. So it's all a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you for choosing to say yes, to be here, to have the conversation with me. And I'm so grateful. It has been a journey that we are, and thank you for your openness and your authenticity and willing to share that very personal journey. And so it's wonderful where you are right now, and all of the the meetings that you do lead, and because you have incredible wisdom and experience and the time in, and you are able to pass that on to others and support them, and you've saved many lives.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking me. And I'm not able to say no to you.
I love you.
I love you too, my darling.
And this wraps up Lead What You Live with Tina Lizzio. Thank you.